Welcome back to Stripped, Drop Your Patterns. If you are new here, this is a space where we explore not only the all too common roadblocks in modern dating and relationships, but also the underlying patterns we inherited, whether from our family of origin, our social networks and media, our cultural conditioning, etc. I hope that what you get out of these explorations is not only self-knowledge and compassion for your own love journey, but also a deep understanding of and grace for the people that you date along the way. My clients are typically men. This pod is for everybody because everybody got conditioned to certain beliefs and behaviors, and Stripped is here to help you do just that. Strip that shit away. All right, that intro was for all my new friends, but if you've been with me for a bit, you might have noticed a lapse in episodes the last few weeks. My family went through something deeply personal that I will touch on briefly, but today I want to talk to you about finding my way back to normal in hopes that this can be a guidepost for you in navigating difficult phases when, life is lifing. We experience different stages and different seasons of life, so I'm going to go ahead and call this the start of season 2 of Stripped, Drop Your Patterns. Let's get into it. Throw out the rules, forget the cliches. This isn't about the perfect profile or the perfect date. It's about real connection. It's time to strip away the masks, shed the stories, and drop those old patterns that no longer serve you. Tired of dating advice that doesn't fit? So are we. Welcome to Stripped, Drop Your Patterns, where conscious dating isn't about following a script. It's about embracing your whole self and attracting the kind of love that sets your soul on fire. I'm Rachel J., the connection coach and your host. Let's get real. Hello, friend. I am so happy to be back with you. I'm not going to lie. It has been a rough month plus. Without getting too deep into it, there was an emergency in my immediate family that happened to coincide with a pre-planned vacation. In other words, getting married to my beloved in California. I'm from California. That's where my family is. So the timing was obviously less than ideal, but also in a way divinely orchestrated so that I could be there when everything that happened. So it was a very intense 2 weeks for very many reasons, filled with hospital visits and meeting and setting up various caretakers, dealing with a multitude of family dynamics, a shit ton of emotion, and even more uncertainty around all kinds of next steps and decisions that had to be made. And so my trip culminated with my immediate family member being discharged from the hospital and moved into a boarding care home, which, if you don't know, it's smaller and it's more attentive care than like a traditional assisted living facility. Real quick side note, if it's available for you, I highly encourage you to look into obtaining long-term care insurance, which makes a world of difference if and when you find yourself at an age and health circumstance that requires a high level of care and comfort. So, long-term care insurance. Just look into it now and you can thank me when you're 80. Okay. Anyways, this is a very brief overview of what went down, but the point is that I went through a very painful and concentrated stretch of time, and I came home and had to drop back into normal life and routine again. So my reason for sharing it with you is because at different points, we all go through these traumatic life and joy interruptions, and it's important to have tools to find our way back. So that's what we're talking about today. I want to talk to you about finding my way back and sharing the tools that support me in case that is helpful in supporting you. Now, let me preface this by saying that I am no stranger to these cycles, these waves, as I call them. I've been through other deeply painful periods in my 43 years, so the experience of pain is not new to me. But it's my way of processing that has evolved. And so I want to share some of those tools with you. And, of course, no big surprise here. They are all connection based. Okay, so let's start with some simple self-care practices that will allow you to connect back to yourself. A big part of processing what you're feeling is really in just getting it out of your head. Journaling is personally very helpful for me. Sometimes I try to meditate first so that I can get a bit of clarity on my thoughts, but oftentimes it's the actual practice of journaling that brings the clarity. So I'll just skip ahead to the journaling, and then maybe I'll meditate on what came up for me after. So, do it however it works for you. But I find that having to put my, sort of fragmented thoughts that, they just get jumbled and they float around in your brain. And sometimes you just can't make sense of them. You just know that they're building up and causing a bit of anxiety. Putting those fragments into complete sentences to write them down actually helps to reveal what it is that I'm actually feeling. It really does bring a lot of clarity when you allow yourself to just sort of free write or brain dump onto the page. And it also helps to move that stuck energy from keeping those thoughts to yourself. It allows that energy to move through. And so it's kind of a similar feeling of release as if you're venting to a person, but without the fear of judgment or being interrupted or receiving that well-meaning but often solicited advice. So again, meditation can be helpful, especially guided meditations. If you're like me and your mind tends to wander, or even just soothing music can start to really calm your nervous system. EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, or tapping. This is something I've talked previously about. This is another practice that I find really useful. It's a powerful tool for rewiring your brain on a million different topics, but in this particular case, I use it when I start feeling anxious or overwhelmed or helpless. So long walks in nature are really good for me. Breathwork, yoga, for me it's Bikram yoga. I know it's intense and people love it or hate it. I'm a lover. Any other form of exercise that allows you to get out of your head and into your body. For some, it might be sort of intense cardio or running or HIIT or boxing. Just any exercise that feels good to you will also help to move that energy. And then the biggest and most important self-care tool that I would offer you in challenging times would be to give yourself grace. Set emotional boundaries and just take the time that you need. Honestly, I actually intended to do this episode 2 weeks ago. I started brainstorming for it and I got pretty far, but it was feeling disconnected. And obviously here we are now 2 weeks later and it's just now coming out. But at that time, I was working on it because I was feeling that should of releasing an episode quickly because I had already missed a few. But my energy at that time was just still low and I was still down in it and feeling the feels. And so even though I had the idea for sharing tools with you, it was just coming out forced. And so I didn't want to come back and be like, hey, in that space of sharing these tools with you for returning to normal. And, I'm all for being real and transparent with you, but that just low vibe energy, that space that I was in didn't feel good to me, especially, again, if this episode is supposed to be about tools to help you feel better in these times. It's kind of a mismatch. So a little more of a delay. Apologies for that, but here we are. So when you're going through it, notice where your energy level is at. And if it's not aligned with what you, again, should be doing, which just to be clear, I'm talking about activities that are beyond what you must do to take care of yourself, like going to work or eating and staying hydrated, getting good sleep. Don't force yourself to be social. Like these are the kinds of activities I'm referring to here, not to push. So like being social or putting yourself in situations that will deplete you. Don't do more than necessary within the day, and trying to stay busy just to distract yourself from whatever's going on. I find it's very common. A lot of people do that. I find that it is totally not helpful. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole because all of that feeling is being suppressed and it's going to come out one way or another, right? So it's about giving yourself that grace and, finding healthy expression for it. Don't overdo it within your day. And if you need to take a break or a nap or a bath, do it. When you're coming back from a heavy or challenging time, it's very important to listen to what your body needs and do the tried and true practices that restore your energy. And then when you're ready to add more back into your day, you'll know. Now let's talk about the ways that we connect with other people during difficult times. For me, I have never really been afraid to feel my feelings, but where I used to shut down and keep them to myself, I now ask for help. So don't be afraid of asking for help. It does not make you weak. That's such a common misperception. Asking for help shows courage and strength. But, and here's the caveat, you must be selective about who you ask for help. So for me, I have a wide circle of close friends, and these are people who have become my extended or chosen family. But at various low points during my life, I've learned which of those people has the capacity to hold space for my deepest, rawest feelings, and who, not for a lack of loving me, just simply don't have that capacity. And I think that sometimes in those darker moments, we identify who showed up for us during certain situations and who didn't. And then we naturally start to go down the mental spiral of, well, so-and-so wasn't there when I needed them. They must not be a very good friend after all. Or they must not care about me as much as I care about them. And this can be a very dangerous and destructive spiral to go down. Instead of doing that, I would invite you to consider that this so-and-so simply doesn't have the capacity to process what you're dealing with. So in other words, consider that this person who seemingly isn't showing up for you simply doesn't know how to show up for you. Perhaps they have their own traumas and challenges that haven't been processed, and therefore they don't have the tools to support you. Whether past or present, it may be something they're going through now, and they're not someone who typically asks for help, and so they're not able to give back in that way, but they're not able to express that, hey, I actually also am going through the shit right now. Or perhaps holding that space for you would force them to confront their own traumas and challenges in a way that they're not ready to. So, in other words, consider that it's not about you. It's not that this person doesn't love you as much as you love them, or that they don't care what you're going through. It's simply about them not having the capacity to be supportive in the way that you need in that particular circumstance. And this is a lot like in dating and romantic relationships, which again is normally our focus on stripped, but because I'm the connection coach and what we talk about is relevant for all relationship dynamics, I'm inviting you to remove yourself from the equation when you get frustrated with someone in these circumstances and consider where that other person might be coming from. So see the situation from their perspective and soften. Soften in your frustration or anger at their response or lack of response, and accept what they can and do offer you by the way of love and support. And then identify the person or people who are able to provide the support you need in those more intense life moments, and lean on them the next time something of this magnitude knocks you down. Approaching your need for support in this way is not only a practice of extending empathy, but also implementing healthy boundaries. Two of my core connection skills that I coach my clients to develop in their relationship work. Because by identifying the people who are more capable of supporting you during difficult times, you're actually creating a double blessing. First, you're building your vulnerability muscles by returning to the spaces that are safe and supportive rather than draining and causing energy leaks. And you set the container for your other relationships by removing that gray area and the expectations for how you think they, again, quote unquote, should show up for you. You free up that other person to be their best at what they do bring to the relationship. Bringing this back to my recent experience, and bounce back ability, I was able to save time and energy and heartache and overanalysis that comes with that feeling of, well, so-and-so let me down. And instead, I called on the friends who have previously demonstrated that they do have the capacity to sit in the suck with me. It doesn't make my other friends any less ride or die. It simply allows each relationship to be its own beautiful dynamic. Now, another great tool for bouncing back and moving the energy, shifting your focus, whatever language resonates with you, is being of service to someone else. When I came back from my trip, I had 2 Cuddlist sessions scheduled that I needed to raise my energy for to be able to be fully present for them. Side note, I know that I have previously said that I am no longer a practicing Cuddlist, but when my established clients reach out here and there, I try to be available for them. So in preparation for these 2 sessions, I did quite a bit of the self-care practices I mentioned earlier in order to start moving that stagnant, sad, helpless energy out and to reconnect to the unconditional love energy. Let me tell you, these 2 sessions that I facilitated, which were a week apart, were so restorative, holding these beautiful souls, providing emotional safety and comfort, and that unconditional love with a capital L energy, meaning non-romantic, universal love energy, was like a soothing balm for not only my clients, but for my soul as well. Doing for others from that unconditional love with a capital L energy is another double blessing. It allows you to focus on another person's needs, which gives us perspective and takes the focus off of our own immediate circumstances. And it also lifts up the person that you're supporting. So maybe you're thinking, well, that's cool, but I don't want to be a cuddlist. Well, you don't have to be. If you're in any service provider role, even if it is a customer service agent, you have an opportunity to put a bit more focus on that unconditional love with a capital L energy into your service calls. Another option is, of course, doing volunteer work in your local community or offering to help your neighbor with their groceries, right? Basic acts like holding the door open for people, making eye contact, saying hello, and wishing someone a good day. All of these very simple, basic actions will all accomplish that same feel-good energy shift. And it's good for you and it's good for the people around you. And it's just spreading that unconditional love with a capital L feeling further out into the world, and it does create a ripple effect. And again, these are very easy things that we can do, things that we often do on automatic without even thinking about it, like holding the door open for somebody. And those small actions compound the more that you do them throughout the day. So start there, okay? But being of service is really a double blessing. It serves them and it fills you up. And then finally, the last tool I'm going to cover is, of course, professional support. And so as we talked about knowing who to turn to for help within your friend group, this also applies to finding professional support. I myself have used traditional talk therapy in the past to process through my experiences and emotions and traumas, and it was a tremendous resource for me. And I've also worked with energetic healers of varying approaches for different situations. I recommend trying different modalities to learn what feels comfortable, what works for you, and what might feel more appropriate depending on the particular circumstances. For me, coming back from this recent situation, I recognized that a lot of complex and layered thoughts and feelings were coming up for me that I would need to process with a professional. So I reached out to my former therapist, but she wasn't able to take me back because I had moved out of state since we had last worked together and the licensing restricted it. And honestly, this momentarily set me back even further, dropping me into victim mode, piling more shit onto the feelings that I already had of why is all of this happening right now? So finding out that I wouldn't be able to resume sessions with my former therapist, who I had built a rapport with, who I felt comfortable with, and who I had already provided a lot of context as to my family dynamics, that instantly triggered that feeling of, can't I catch a fucking break? Instead of staying in this mode and wallowing in those feelings, and I did, I'll be honest with you, I did wallow for a bit because that really hit me hard that I wouldn't be able to keep working with her because I believe in signs from the universe. It's like, what are you trying to tell me? Anyway, I allowed myself to wallow for a little bit, but ultimately wallowing in those feelings would do nothing to propel me forward, right? And so I tuned into the feelings and I sat with them and I journaled and I dug deeper into what I was actually needing to help me process through these recent events. Because again, I do believe that the universe works in our favor. And so I really tried to tap into how could this seemingly setback possibly be in my favor? And what I realized was that maybe the divine reason that I can't resume working with my therapist is because maybe traditional therapy wouldn't be the most beneficial to me right now. Yes, the situation is layered and complex and ties back to a million other pieces of my life story. But when I really started to tune into what I was feeling, I noticed that the biggest block to my moving through this experience was actually more energetic than cerebral. So I reached out to my quantum mama, energy activation goddess queen and friend who helped me to identify the root of my resistance and shift the energies within a 3-hour Zoom call, as opposed to several months of weekly sessions with my therapist. So I want to make sure that I'm very clear here. Traditional therapy can be a fantastic resource, and I am in no way discounting the value of a good therapist or support group, if group is more your vibe. But what I am saying is that traditional therapy is not the only resource available. And for me, being able to connect with where my blockages were and what I needed support with, I was able to receive support that ended up being better suited to who and where I am today. And so having the right support for your situation and your goals is key. I'll give you, a related example. So if you're looking to get in shape, right? you would probably first seek out a trainer to teach you the right exercises and form, as well as to hold you accountable for staying consistent. But as we know, getting in physical shape is about more than just exercise. You may need to seek a medical doctor, particularly depending on your age and your genetics and your gender. So you may need to seek a medical doctor to establish your baseline health stats in case the exercises need to be adjusted for your specific cardiovascular or mobility needs. You may also need to seek a nutritionist to get you on a dietary plan that is more specific to your goals, physiology, and genetic makeup than, say, the latest TikTok diet trend. And you may need to seek a holistic practitioner to guide you on appropriate supplementation to address the underlying causes of your symptoms and support your cellular and energetic needs. You might seek a massage therapist or an acupuncturist to relieve pain and inflammation as you progress with your physical exercises. You may see an energy healer like a Reiki practitioner to clear energetic blocks to achieving your optimal health. So all of these roles support the overall goal of being in shape, but the specific resources that would be beneficial for you are determined by several factors, right? What I'm inviting you to do is explore the resources that are available to you for different areas of your specific healing and circumstances, and just begin to file those away so that when the shit hits the fan, you already know who to call that would be most appropriate for the circumstances. So again, in my situation, I've been in places in the past where I really needed to speak with a licensed therapist and talk through a lot of things, right? But because I have experienced a lot of other healing modalities, I was able to connect with myself and notice maybe it's not in my brain, it's not brain processing that I need to do, it's moving that energy. And so I knew the person to contact to get that support, and it ended up shifting the energy again in a 3-hour call. So my friends, I'm going to leave it here for today. My family situation is still evolving, and so there's still a lot for me to manage and process on a daily basis. But I choose not to stay focused solely on that because it could easily drag me down into a depression if I let it. Instead, I will continue using the tools available to me, and I really hope that the tools that I use will be helpful for you too. So to briefly recap, we talked about several self-care tools like meditation, journaling, tapping, exercise, being in nature, setting emotional boundaries, and giving yourself grace. I shared pointers on knowing who to ask for help, both in your social circles and your professional therapies, both traditional and alternative therapies. And we also talked about the soul-nourishing effect that being of service can bring to you. Now, whenever life is lifing, whatever it throws at you, you can handle it. Let that sink in for a minute. You can handle it. Trust yourself, ask for help, and just know that this too shall pass. And if you have other ideas or your own go-tos for getting through difficult times, please drop a comment. Use this as an opportunity to be of service by sharing the tools that work for you. And of course, share this episode with anyone you know who's going through it right now. At the very least, it will remind them that they are not alone. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. As always, I'm Rachel J., the Connection Coach. And even when we're not talking specifically about dating and relationships, the theme around here is connection, folks. But not to worry, we will be getting back to dating and relationships real soon. This season, I'll be bringing on different guests and experts and my very own beloved. We're getting deep into it now, so make sure you like and subscribe to get those new drop notifications. You're listening to Stripped, Drop Your Patterns. Choose to feel good today and embody that unconditional love. Bye for now.